And here we are, in Midas's palace. But before we can actually do anything here, we've got some gorillas trying to murder us. Multiple ones at that. I do try and not get caught in their attacks, like get caught up against the edges, because that's a very dangerous position to be in with these fellas. But thankfully that they're done and dusted, and also, unfortunately, yeah, this is a very, very long part. And also, this isn't the end of Greece. There's another level after Midas's palace. So Greece does take a while. So, as you probably guessed, Midas is another character from Greek mythology. You should probably know the story of Midas. Basically, he, well, the myth goes that whatever he touched turned to gold. Now, I think in Ovid, basically what happens is, Dionysus offers him anything he wishes, then Midas wishes that anything he touched turns to gold, and so it does, and that turns out to be the bane of his existence afterwards, because obviously, if everything you touch turns to gold, that includes your food, and if you touch any family members, it also includes them. And water, so you're kind of screwed if you touch anything when you have that power. It's rather depressing. And so, as you probably have guessed, our task is going to relate to that power of turning things into gold. Basically, what we need to do is we need to get these bars, I believe they're lead bars or something. And basically, from there we need to, well, we need to get them, turn them into gold, and use them to progress further. And this room can be a bit of a pain, to say the least. You're going to want to make use of the save function, because it's going to come in handy. Also, if you want an artifact, I believe it is, make sure to pull that before you do anything, because you're going to need it. I have to say that this particular room is very, very stabby, spiky. It's not quite as bad as the sword room that we had to face earlier, but still reasonably horrible. I mean, just look at all those spears. It's just like they just want to pierce Lara. Ugh. Now, if I'm recalling correctly, and I think I am, this area is essentially split up into 3 relatively large rooms. The first of which is this room. You might have figured that out, seeing as we're here already, but still. Then there's one, I believe, well, there's one on the other side of the Midas room, and then I believe there's one behind the statue's head. But I wouldn't quote me on that specific thing. Now, upon pulling the lever, make sure to get over here very quickly and make that jump, because you've got to do it so perfectly to get here. And if you fail, well, sucks to be you. Reload. Or, you know, wait for it all to come back down again, but I think if you don't actually move on to things, it does just take a while for everything to resort to its original position. Now that's not the only artifact in this room, at least I think it's not the only artifact in this room. There's another something or other in that little alcove over there. So there's the alcove with the ore in it that we need, which is in that big one. And then to the left of that, above the pillars, is where we're heading. Now, this isn't as bad of a movement as it could be. That first jump was a lot more horrible. This is pretty tame, all things considered. And thankfully we have to wait for everything to rise up now, so we don't have to worry too much about getting across. Now, here's something that you probably would not. That was a very stupid move on my part. Oh well. So, where I am, I know a good number of historians, and, one week, they had a rather wonderful topic, which was all about, I believe it was Greek homosexuality. I can't quite remember the name of one of the books that they had to read, but it was something like The Rise of the Phallus. Yes, there is a book that is dealing with Greek homosexuality on Grecian urns. That is a thing. You'd be surprised what academics look at when they are dealing with things. Like, seriously, some people's interests are bizarre. Oh, and it's a relic that was over here. Quite a cute little owl, really. So, that jump is not difficult. My failure was because I took the wrong path. Well, I didn't take the wrong path, I kind of mucked up my path after getting to the right point. And now we have to go through the entire thing all over again to get to the ore. It's a running theme of this level, really. Particularly in the last room that we have to deal with. And that room is reasonably horrible for doing things like this to you. But, oh well, it cannot be helped. These tombs weren't exactly built for ease of traversal, because, I mean, they didn't want you getting into all their secrets. They wanted to keep them hidden. Like, it's not Lara's fault. Well, it is Lara's fault for kind of coming in and attempting to break in and find all the secrets. It's just wrong. She should really learn to know when to not be a silly explorer, and especially when these things could kill her. I'm really not being serious here. But here we go. The first of I believe it's 3 lead bars that we need to collect. Generally, if you ever need to collect anything, it's 3. Or at least it's safe to assume that it's going to be 3. Not necessarily the case, because obviously there were 4 keys that we had to get earlier, and we are going to have 4 items again a little bit later on. But oh look, we have 2 more gorillas. And I've noticed that I've started using the Clayton way of pronouncing gorillas. Clayton from Tarzan, the Disney Tarzan version, Brian Blessed. I believe it's Brian Blessed's voice. If it's not over, I need to check up on my Disney facts again. It's actually surprisingly fun saying gorillas like that. I don't know. So what we could do right now is turn one of those gold bars into, well, one of those lead bars into gold. However, we're going to get all three first before we do anything. Also, the hand that is fallen off the statue is the thing that is what is going to turn things to gold. If you happen to jump onto it, which is certainly something you can do if you so chose to do so, yeah, that's probably one of the most horrible deaths that Lara could ever face. Because, as you might have guessed, she turns to gold. And that's a horrible thing to happen, especially when you realise, slowly but surely, that your body is turning to gold. Because, like, it starts from the feet and then slowly rises up, so slowly but surely you lose your control of your body, and it's quite horrible. It's not quite horrible to look at when it happens, because it's very well done. And the quality of the gold on the gold statue of Lara is superb, but it's certainly not something that I would ever like to personally happen to me, because that would be horrible. Dying in general is horrible, but yeah. Now, this room here is, right now, okay. It's not being offensive at all. It's not being particularly challenging either. All we need to do is go down some stairs and yank some poles out, and we can get our lead bar, but things are going to get a little bit more complicated after that. Now, I don't know why I've decided that I want to talk about this now, but I'm going to talk about this now. So Lara's hair is a very big thing. Like, seriously, you have no idea the emphasis that is placed on Lara's hair sometimes. Although you might have some inkling to it, considering the massive emphasis that was made for the definitive edition reboot of Tomb Raider, with the Tressifex hair, with all its different strands moving in proper physics. But Lara's hair's kind of grown a lot since the beginning. So in the original Tomb Raider, even though she had her signature ponytail in cutscenes and in all of the art and stuff, in-game she didn't have it. Because they couldn't, I don't think they could animate, or they couldn't afford to animate, or they couldn't get it to work, but they couldn't animate the ponytail working. So basically what they did was they put it in a little bun at the bottom of Lara's hair. Then come Tomb Raider 2 and everything after that, Lara got her ponytail. And then it was Tomb Raider Legend that turned it into the looser ponytail and introduced more strands to it, so that it looked a little more realistic. Then come Tomb Raider Underworld, it's developed into a bit more of a realistic hairdo, and come the reboot, they tried to go even more into the realistic, and ended up with Tressifex, which is, although not necessarily the best simulation of hair I've ever seen, it's certainly very impressive that it renders a ridiculous number of strands in real time, acting it with proper physics. I can't remember. There was a like an infographic thing which showed the evolution of hair rendering in things. So it compared like Sully from Monsters Inc. compared to his Monsters University model, and the wargs in Lord of the Rings, and how long it took to render how long it took to render the entire model. And considering how many strands of hair Lara has in the reboot, the fact that it takes 0 hours to render it all is very, very, very impressive. You just don't get that in, well, it's brand new for video games, really. However, I will argue that other games have done, well, are going to do hair that looks better. Final Fantasy 15. Sorry, what was that? But yeah, as you can see with this room, it got all sandy. It decided, I'm just gonna let it all rain down on you. Now, we could have just exited the room if we had wanted to, but I want that health pack. I'm not necessarily ever going to use it, but I just like to have a bit bigger store. It's just a nice little thing to have, really. And here's our exit. So we only have one room of Midas's palace left to do, and unfortunately it is the longest room of the entire thing. Because well, for starters, it's a reasonably difficult room to traverse, but also it's got a very hideous relic in it. Probably one of, if not the hardest relics to get in the game. And I'm being serious in that. It's basically because you're put under a time limit to get the artifact, and getting to the switch to pull the to get the relic is a challenge in itself. So, yeah, you're about to see what we are going to face very shortly. And I'm still depressed that I don't have the 50 caliber pistols, even though I picked them up. But that is because of the whole I died a few times after picking up the 50 caliber pistols, so it didn't save, and I didn't realise that. Also, something that I haven't mentioned, but it does begin here, is the fact of, like, when Lara gets wet, her clothes and her body, it shows the moisture. They do take that further come Underworld, and it's a lot more, how can I put it? It's a lot more realistic in Underworld. So, like, Lara's body attracts dirt, and, well, as you move through a level, and then when you enter water, you get a bit more realistic water dropping off. It's a very cool effect. And they kind of used it in the reboot, but it was kind of less noticeable, if I'm honest. At least I don't seem to recall noticing that happening as much, but yes. This is what we're facing in this room. Lots of fire. Also, what I am looking for right here is this little fella. Yeah, there's an alligator / crocodile just waiting to kill us. And to basically you're going to want to drag it over here and just shoot at it. If you just want to give yourself a nice, easy-ish ride through this room. Because, I mean, this room is a pain because of all the flames. And getting the timing down to not get hit is a pain. Thankfully you are saved through the fact of Lara can take a hit, and if you have stocked up on health packs, then you should be able to get through this no problem. It just depends whether you want to go the risky or the safer route. And by risky or safer I mean, do you wait or do you just run through and use health packs, essentially? Now basically I'm going to show you both methods of safety. Well, both tactics of getting about. So, if you want to go be safe, basically, on the big round platforms where it's just a single flame, kind of jump, stand on the edge, because you can do that, and then when the flame's gone down, run. On the one where the flame is kind of going around in a circle, basically pull up when it has just passed where you are, and then run up very quickly, essentially. It's worse come the next jump, because you're aiming for this thing here, and then you want to make this jump backwards to this ledge here, which I've struggled making. It's probably one of the glitchier jumps in the game. I don't know why, but it doesn't like you very much, I have to say. And also, what you're meant to do here is grapple and pull, but it's ever so slightly difficult to... ever so slightly difficult to see the grapple ring. It's easier when you're on the other side. But now it's basically time to go get our lead bar. And after that, we need to get our last relic of the level. Because the relic itself is hidden in the pillar that we are about to jump to. And it's not a pleasant one to reach. Now I think what was going on in my head here was just like, have I pulled it round far enough? It doesn't look like I can jump to that. You can. That is exactly the position it needs to be in. I am just a bit of an idiot. Now you've probably noticed the little effect that's going on in this room, where when the flames kind of puff out, everything gets a bit blurrier. It's a very cool effect, but it's one that does infuriate me ever so slightly, because it's kind of just like, guys, I want to be able to see things properly, please. Please don't do this to me. There is a room a lot later on in the game that is definitely worse for it. You'll see why when we get there. But either way, there is our last lead bar, and that is going to be well, that is our ticket to progression. However, before we leave this room, we need to get our ever so wonderful relic, which is a challenge to get, to say the least. So, to be able to even start getting to our wonderful relic, we need to get back to the first switch of the room, the one that was just past the first two flaming platforms. And we will get there eventually. Lara's just having a nice little break. Because getting your head around this setup is challenging. It's not quite... well, it is evident what you're meant to do, but it's ever so slightly horrible, because so the relic is on this platform here, and it's thought it was going to be cool, just make it all the way over to the other side without having to swim and get back up. But yeah, so the relic is in that pillar, but the switch to open up that relic is on the same pillar, but below the platform. So you can see where the difficulty arises. You've basically got to get all the way around to the switch, and then I can't remember exactly how long it is that you have, but it's something like 40 seconds or so to make it all the way to the relic before it disappears. There's a similar puzzle in the next big level, which is even harder than this wonderful relic. And I have to say, I hate it so much more. It was one of the two sections of the game that I can recall that basically meant that something that would have taken maybe 20 minutes took like an hour. That's how long I spent trying to get some of these things, because they're not easy, and this one's really not easy either. This is the point at which you should just be reckless. So, once you've pulled the lever, the checkpoint will activate after this has risen up. What you want to do is save your game right here, and then if you don't get it, you can reload, and then all you have to do is pull the lever again and move quickly. So it's nice in that sense that they put the checkpoint there, because otherwise this would be even more horrible to get than it already is. So after a few failures, this is my super reckless, I don't care anymore, I want this relic run. You would think I would probably be like trying to go supersonic and press the boost button and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, Lara doesn't have a boost button, nor does she have a run button. It's times like this where it's just like, Lara, move faster, woman! Because I do feel that I very much would like, well, I think, come Underworld, you can get Lara to move faster. I don't know whether that's just my head creating the idea that is the case. I will see when I replay Tomb Raider Underworld whether I am making that up or not. But as it stands in these in Legend and Anniversary, Lara moves just ever so slightly too slow sometimes for her own good. But there is our relic. Let's move on. Let's goldify our lead bars. And then we are going to be able to get to the end of Greece. And hopefully beat Pierre de Pont to the Scion, because God knows that smarmy sod needs to have a lesson in manners, I should think. Also, I'm sorry, gorillas, but you are going to suffer. I mean, how many blooming gorillas has Lara murdered today? Like, seriously? Those things are endangered. You really are going on the whole Clayton gorillas murder spree. Just make sure you don't hang yourself with some... Oh, look, vines. Lara, be very, very careful right now. You're walking a very dangerous line. Disney wouldn't be very happy, I don't think. Also, the British connection. Blummin'neck. Lara, be very, very careful. And with that, we have all 3 golden bars. Let's fit them in around the statue. And the level is finished. Yes! There's really not much more to go of Greece now. At least, I don't recall there being that much more left to Greece, but then I thought there was only 3 parts to Greece. And it shows you what my memory's like. But either way, the way forward is open to us. We're done here. Let's move on.